What is up, everybody? We are barking. It's dark, and we've got Gentry Estes on the show tonight. The man, the myth, the legend. Worked with Gentry. Me and Rusty did on the same staff way back in the day. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of stress. Trying to build a site there. We're trying to do the same thing over at DawgsHQ, and we'll talk to him about kind of where he got started and his path to where he is now. We'll get into all that. But first, Jake, what's going on with you, buddy?
Man, just living this hat and hoodie life out here, I guess.
Yeah, right.
That's that MVB hoodie. I can see it. It looks so
100%. I wear it every day almost.
that thing is ridiculously comfortable, man.
It is 100%. Rusty, shout out Rusty with that.
Palmer's cheering in the background. Something happened. Wait,
are you kidding me? Oh, God.
I heard it from my neighbor upstairs first.
Oh, my God. Okay. All right. We got we got to be professional here. This is Gonzo a little bit, but oh, man, that was Austin Riley, 2-run homer. Braves take the lead in the top of the in the bottom of the 8th. So, but yeah, we got Gentry on, man, and I don't know, Ruth, say something, man. I'm a mess right this minute.
You're just beside yourself. You know what I was thinking, really, honestly, when we started the show up, we need to contact this guy who we got this music from, because I love our theme song. Every time it hits, man, it just really puts me in the mood.
Believe it or not, this is, I don't know how we can contact him. This is just some straight up old royalty-free music.
Yeah. No, I think Wes tracked it down, if I'm not mistaken.
If he did, that's incredible, because I've thought about it before, and
we should have that guy on at some point.
As far as I know, it could be a 12-year-old just really good with the computer, like as far as we know. But hey, listen, let's go ahead and get moving so we can get Gentry on here. Let me talk about GameTime.co real quick. Hey, listen, hopefully there'll be another Braves game for you to get a ticket to. That would mean the Braves have, maybe not. Maybe the Braves win this one and 2 more in Philly and go ahead and put it away. But if not, maybe you get to come back to Truist Park, and that would be swell as well. I'm still kind of reeling right now.
That would be swell.
Yeah, I said swell. I'm reeling a little bit. But listen, man, this app is amazing. This app is awesome. I was actually looking at it today until I'd forgot almost for a minute that we had, Bark After Dark tonight, and I was thinking about getting a Braves ticket and going, because my family's out of town in Nashville and it's just me here at home. But we've got this show and I didn't want to miss it. Didn't want to stand Gentry up because that's my dude. But listen, Game Time is amazing. The app is awesome. You see all of those tickets available. Listen, go get you one for Vanderbilt this weekend. I know it's not in the greatest shape there. We'll talk to Gentry about that a little bit, because I think he's been by there since they've been doing the construction. But ultimately, Georgia fans do tend to take over that place, and you should help them out.
Listen, and I will say too, take an opportunity, man. Go see Brock Bowers live. You need to do it. Do it while you still can, because you're going to be paying NFL ticket prices this time next year if you want to see the guy.
Yeah, 100%. You're going to probably be hoping he's in your area, because I doubt the Falcons take him. But yeah, go to GameTime.co, promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, for $20 off your first order. Terms apply. Go check it out. With that, Gentry Estes, come see us, man. Let's talk. Hey, buddy, what's going on? Did you see that complete and utter chaos there with me just a minute ago?
I was going to go turn the game on. Like I saw y'all's responses and was like, okay, what's going on? I started checking Twitter and then saw it myself. So I'm honored that y'all are here hanging out with me instead of watching that game right now.
Gentry, I'm not going to lie to you. Jake does not want to be here right now.
I do. 100%.
He wants
Otherwise,
to
I'd have been like, "Hey, let's
the
push to
Braves.
9:15 or something," you know.
You just need to be prepared. Jake's gonna ask you questions, and then he's gonna totally ignore what you're saying and turn toward his TV screen. This happens every time the Braves are on television, so don't worry about it, man.
Well, so Gentry, if for those who don't know, Gentry, left 24/7 Sports, Dogs 24/7 after helping us build it. I mean, after basically being there through the thick and thin. Roos knows what that's all about. Early on, and he left to take another job, and I jumped into his old role, and that's how I got into team coverage full time. So, Gentry taught me a lot. I learned a lot from him. He honestly is one of the dudes I really credit a lot of times with teaching me how to work, because I got to watch him do it, and the laser focus and the eagle eye and everything like that. I hope I've kept up his legacy there. But what are you doing now, man? Tell folks that may not know what you got going on.
Well, I'm the sports columnist for the Tennessean in Nashville. So I spend a lot of my time covering the NFL, covering the Titans, covering the NHL with the Preds. You've also got Vanderbilt and then the Vols, obviously, too, up here to kind of take up most of my time these days. After I left, I guess it was 2015 that I left.
I believe it was. Yeah,
the Dogs 247 site, and then I went to Louisville as an editor for a little while, and then missed writing, got back into it, and now I'm in. I came to Nashville in 2019, and been the columnist here ever since. I love it.
You got a chance to cover a little bit of some real athletes there when you were in Louisville, right? Didn't you do some horse racing and stuff while you were there? That was probably pretty cool.
The most fun thing is I've job hopped as much as probably anyone you'll ever come across. I've done a lot of different things and covered a lot of different teams over the years. But when you do that and you end up in different places, you're constantly learning new things. When I got to Louisville, I didn't know the first thing about horse racing, not really, other than watching the Kentucky Derby maybe for 2 minutes a year. And when I was there, that's one thing I really set out to learn. I learned handicapping and how to be able to go. By the end of that, I was doing the picks for the paper, in terms of like when you buy the paper and you say like in race 8, who do I like? They were reading my stuff by the end of it, which is pretty amazing for somebody who didn't know anything. And I still don't know why people would have wanted to know what I thought on that. But I actually did pretty well with it. And then I come to Nashville and I kind of do the same thing with hockey. I didn't know that much about hockey coming here, covering the Nashville Predators. And, I've always kind of gotten bored easily, wanted to try new things. So there you go.
That kind of falls. I mean, you fell into two really good markets, I would say, for both things, man. I mean, I know those Nashville folks love their Preds, and obviously Louisville's built on horses. So,
yeah, and honestly, as somebody who suffers from imposter syndrome daily, and I have for most of my adult life, I feel like I can definitely understand where you're coming from about kind of covering something and being amazed at the fact that people read anything you've got to write on a specific subject. I think that's kind of my whole career writing. So I completely get that. So one thing that this show is kind of built around is we want to know where people come from. And if I'm not mistaken, you're from Alabama, right?
Yep. Birmingham.
But you went to Georgia.
I did.
Yeah.
What part of, I'm curious, what part of Birmingham are you from?
The part Cahaba Heights.
Okay.
And it's Vestavia now, but at the time, I was not zoned for Vestavia growing up. So I tell people I went to Shades Valley High School because that's close, but there's actually another school on that same campus called JCIB. It's kind of like a magnet school in the county that I actually went to that school. But when people ask me where I went, I always say Shades Valley because that's what people actually know.
If
that makes any sense.
No, for sure. I've spent a lot of time in Birmingham because my dad lived in Birmingham. And he was on South Side specifically. He lived out on 280 for a little while. I tell people all the time, man, Birmingham, an underrated city, just in general, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I go back a lot. I haven't actually lived there since I was 18, but I ended up going to Georgia. My dad lived in Atlanta, so that was part of that. But I wanted to go to Georgia mostly for the journalism school. I mean, I kind of always knew what I wanted to do and was able to get into Grady and wanted. And so that was pretty much why I went to Georgia. But also, I mean, it was the kind of thing after my junior year of high school, I went out and visited Athens one day and just kind of drove around town and saw it. And within about an hour, I said, "Oh yeah, I'm going here." It was over from there.
Yeah, that's probably the case with a lot of people. I bet that's a common story. So where did it go from there? Where did you get? Where did you first start getting a chance to cover sports? And I know you've covered, what is it, three teams in the college football market before you kind of got into, editor role and stuff like that.
Yeah, at one time or another, I've covered Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee. And that was before I even came here. But it's really not just them. I think I've added it up, Jake's. I've covered like half the SEC at one time or another as like the beat guy or somebody who's focusing on that particular team. In addition to like Florida State, Georgia Tech. Like I said, I've job hopped a lot. I've done a lot of different things, and I'm probably one of the few people that can say they've covered both Alabama football and Kentucky basketball and been a part of those two things. But so yeah, y'all can. I'm a certified expert on probably like half the league in terms of like what it was like covering those teams. But I've spent the most time probably covering Georgia. If you count being in school, my first couple of years out of school at the Albany Herald, which I know Seth Emerson told you guys about that.
Yeah,
on an appearance about the two of us being on that same staff about like 20 years ago. But I went from there, covered Alabama when Mike Shula was the coach.
The salad days.
That's right. They're 6-6 and playing Minnesota in the Music City Bowl. Yeah, the fans there don't know anything about that now. But then from there, covered Philip Fulmer at Tennessee, then covered Nick Saban's first three teams at Alabama, went back there, and then came and joined Rusty at the 24/7 site in 2010. And I left right before Mark Richt's final season.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Gentry, since you've had a chance to work on three, SEC beats, but pretty different beats in terms of fan expectations, in terms of how people feel about the program, especially at those times. Can you talk to us a little bit about that dynamic? I mean, what was who's got the craziest beat, man? I mean, where are the people the most rabid?
It's any SEC team you would say that, but not to offend the Georgia listeners, but I'm going to put Alabama football and Kentucky basketball on a different level. Those two are very similar, and I feel like their fan bases are. I say this as somebody who grew up in Alabama. In that state, it really is a way of life for a lot of people. Football, whether you're an Alabama or an Auburn fan, you go into gas stations and there's cutouts of Nick Saban. You can't really do anything in your daily life without being reminded of those football programs routinely. And Georgia's probably a little more like that now that you're talking about a national championship team. But I mean, you guys live in Athens. There's a whole different part of Athens that doesn't have anything to do with the university and the football program. And that's part of the reason I loved Athens as much as I did being there. So you don't really find that as so much at Alabama or Kentucky when it comes to that basketball program. But that's not no slight to Georgia, Tennessee, any of these other teams that I've covered. But I've always just in terms of culture around covering that team, like it was a little bit different there. Like covering Alabama and Tuscaloosa, you would actually like get recognized when you went and picked up your food somewhere, things like that. I've never had that happen anywhere else.
Well, I'll say this: there are a couple of dead oak trees as supporting evidence. Okay, so it's it's not like it's not like you're going out on a big limb there. But it is interesting that that you say that, because I wondered if you might say Georgia simply because of the fact that you covered the Georgia beat in a different way than most people who started out when you started out and got a chance to cover it, because you had a message board and you had, even after I remember Georgia Tennessee 2000. It was the 2014 Georgia Tennessee game, or no, it was one of those Georgia Tennessee games where we worked together, and you're like, "Hey man, listen, it's not good. It's not good out here. I need your help on the boards right now." And Georgia had won. Georgia had kind of won a game. Todd Gurley had gone off, and it was a high scoring game, but you were pretty out. It wasn't great. And so that's one of the things that message boards really bring into play there. What was your relationship with that part of it?
There were, those years were so frustrating at times for Georgia fans because those teams were so very good and just not great.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like every year people would get their hopes up, and then at one point or another, they would be let down. I think the worst I ever saw it was probably after that 2012 SEC championship game where they lost to Alabama on the tip pass that Chris Conley caught. And that might have been the worst in terms of those reactions. But, I'll tell you, guys talk about starting up a site. I've been doing this for 20 years, had a lot of different roles, covered a lot of different teams. That was the most difficult thing I've had to do in my entire career. And it's really not even close. We came in, Rusty and I worked together on that site, pretty much from day one. And we're starting that thing where there's a message board and it's me and him. That's it.
Talking to yourself.
Yeah. And, I came from a situation where I'd been covering Alabama for AL.com, which a pretty highly trafficked site. You would write things and get all, hundreds of comments and to go from that to then starting a site from scratch and really having to relearn a lot of the aspects of this job because, there were things about covering the team and covering practice and all that I knew how to do that. I didn't necessarily know how to grow a message board. I didn't necessarily know how to market a site. I learned so much from that experience. And, I know you guys did a wonderful job continuing to grow it a whole lot after I left. And to even get it to the point where it was close to starting to do that is one of the things I'm most proud of because it was unbelievably difficult.
Oh, we were taken off before you left. It was, and you said it before. Jeremy Pruitt's a name that comes up a lot on our show. Simply that we had Davin Bellamy on. He told some great stories about that transition. And honestly, if we're being honest with ourselves, you and I have talked about this before. Me and Rusty have talked about this before. The whole, you and Rusty, well, I wasn't even there yet. You guys being, ahead of the game on that was huge, was absolutely huge in getting that site to take off.
Yeah. And it was, we grew it over the years, but those first couple of years, I remember the first year. What's happening?
Oh, sorry, the game's over now. They just doubled Bryce Harper off of first.
Jake Rowe looks like his family is at gunpoint right now.
Losing?
No. Nick Castellanos hit a ball to the Mike Harris caught a ball jumping into the wall, and then they doubled Bryce Harper off first. I think I turned away too long. So believe it or not.
So that's it. That was the ninth inning.
Fly ball by Castellanos. Yeah. The Jeremy Pruitt thing. I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm glad that's over and we can focus now.
No, it was funny because I got to know Pruitt covering that Georgia team that year, and then to come here. Yeah, I think like the day before I started in the job in Nashville was, I believe, when they lost to Georgia State at Tennessee. And you kind of come into that, and actually, Pruitt was doing, a reasonable job up until that last season. In fact, they extended his contract. They had started getting some momentum going, and then it kind of fell apart in that pandemic year. And we've all seen what happened from that point. But
it was the gator, it was the neck gator, and the way he was wearing it. If he'd have just done a little different with that, and wouldn't have looked like like he was
babushka.
Yeah, babushka. I think you'd have had a little better idea of what was going on.
There's a unique group of coaches and media people who have kind of done all the different schools. It's like everybody everywhere has stories about Jeremy Pruitt.
Yeah.
Kevin Steele is another one. He's been pretty much every school by now. You guys work with Mike Griffith. I think has done the Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee trifecta as well.
I think he's covered Auburn as well.
Michigan State, I believe, Mike.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely know about Mike Griffith covering Tom Izzo. 100%. He's a. I guess Tom Izzo allows some good access there because I've heard several Tom Izzo stories from Mike Griffith.
Are y'all not going to ask me what I'm drinking? Because I actually had a good story with that.
Yeah, what are you drinking?
I came prepared having watched the show.
Yeah, we haven't done that segment in a couple weeks, but let's do what you drinking, man.
This is a infusion vanilla bean blonde. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before.
Okay,
it's in Nebraska, and a couple of years ago, I covered a College World Series, and just had one of those, really, really liked it. So I went back to the College World Series this last summer covering Tennessee. And if you've ever covered one of those, you're there like a week at least, like minimum. And so, I brought a 6-pack of these home with me, but it shows you guys how much I'm actually like drinking in my old age, that this is, I was like, all right, I got to find something. And this is what was in the back of the fridge. So I got this in June and there's still some left, but it is good.
Did you make it to that? Did you make it to the Jello Shot bar out there in Omaha? Surely to God you had to, right?
I've seen it. I know where it is. It's actually like across the street from the stadium. But yeah.
Okay.
And LSU fans are hard to beat.
Yeah, it was over by the time I even got. LSU Tennessee was the last of the 4 games, and by then it was just go ahead and call it.
I'm curious, Gentry. You mentioned the Jeremy Pruitt era of Tennessee, and I just want to know. Man, what was that ride like? Because it was thrills and chills and ups and downs, and there was, good moments, and then it all kind of came crashing down in pretty spectacular fashion.
Yeah, I mean, there at the end, it was. I mean, they were terrible that last season, but at the same time, he had just gotten an extension. You didn't really, you hear rumbles, but you don't really think it's going to happen that year. Plus, this is the pandemic. Everything's on Zoom. You're there, but you're not really there, and you're not around the team. It was just a very strange time. And I remember as that season ended, because you remember the games went into December that year. It was just a strange year, and everything got held up. So at the end, there was just kind of a weird limbo after the season where nobody really knew what was going on. And they'd had a couple of players get suspended from games. So there was, a hint of a NCAA thing kind of going on. And you're hearing they're looking into that. And, what is that going to mean? And, they end up firing him in January with this whole press conference. And what was strange about this whole scenario, I mean, there's a lot strange about it, but what I remember most was Tennessee held a press conference in which the chancellor of the university sat there and talked about how serious these violations were. And I don't know if I've really ever seen a school do that and own up to it on the front end like that. Because usually with the NCAA, you'll report something, but publicly, come get us. We're not going to turn ourselves in, and it was strange to me because at the time Pruitt had a big buyout. So you're thinking, okay, well, Tennessee has self-interest in making this sound as if it's serious. And, come to find out later, information kind of trickled out over the years. But once you got the details of the case and it's since been resolved, I mean, it was pretty serious. They had proof of rule breaking, and, they were able to fire him for cause.
Was there any, hint of that? Was there you know how a beat goes. So, it's like you hear things, right? And, this and this is happening, but it was pretty egregious, right? I think we can all.
Yeah. The big issue with that was, look, we've all been around teams and things happening, but this was during the pandemic. And then, I think some of the stuff with visits and some of the play, it's the kind of thing, there was almost a gentleman's agreement at that point because it was such a strange scenario and nobody could do anything about COVID and everything that was going on. And so I think to have some of the stuff during the middle of that was probably the most egregious part to me. What's funny is if you really look at the money involved, it's nothing compared to what a lot of these kids are getting now. That's what's crazy about it. It's like all this stuff, it's now legal. And to me, this case was an interesting test of the NCAA because technically they could hold Tennessee to the old rules, but I was curious to see, look, are they going to throw the book at a team for all this stuff that wouldn't even be illegal anymore? And they didn't. You know, they came Tennessee, along with some other programs fairly recently, the NCAA's gone easier on them for a lot of the rule breaking stuff. And I think a lot of it has to do with just acknowledgement of an NIL future and what, you know, it's hard to punish a team for things that are legal right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a simple man, but I don't believe NIL, you can still hand money to kids in fast food bags under the current rules that are in place. I could be mistaken.
It was, I think it was just sloppy. It was the kind of thing that, you know, just sloppy, you know, like they didn't have a sense of, you know, decorum about it.
It was, I felt, and you guys, you know, we were all around this thing at the same time. It was the kind of thing that I don't feel like surprised a lot of people.
Nah, not at all.
I think that was the big takeaway for me, was like, they were like, yeah, we're going to fire Jeremy Pruitt for this. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Well, the reason it doesn't surprise me at all, not that not that I've sit here with hard evidence of anything that went on at Georgia or anywhere else, but I do know the guy well enough to know that, you know, and I say this all the time, you know, weaknesses are strengths to an extreme. And I've never met anybody in my life, you know, I'm sure other people would love to put somebody up against it, but I've never talked to anybody personally in my life and had a personal relationship with anybody that wanted to win more than that guy did. And not only did he want to win, he always had one. I think that, you know, some of his frustrations at Georgia were a part of that. You know, some of the stories you heard out of that, I think they were all born out of the fact that, Jesus Christ, this man had won. And I think that he was ready to do anything it took to do that.
Tennessee was a tough job for Jeremy Pruitt,
especially at that particular time.
Yeah. And that's a situation where Josh Heupel's starting to figure this out now. And he's done a very good job there, but I think Tennessee to me was a lot like Nebraska for a lot of years. That's a university with a lot of tradition and extremely high expectations from their fan base without a recruiting base to recruit from locally. If you're not good on a national level at those two universities, you're in trouble. Yeah. Because if you think back to some of the Nebraska's best teams, you know, Tommy Frazier was from Florida, Amon Green was from California. You know, I mean, they were recruiting nationally, but you're only able to do that if you're good. If you have Peyton Manning at quarterback, and I think Tennessee's starting to get that back now, but that was always a real challenge there. Unlike, say, Georgia, where you have one of the richest talent bases in the country in your backyard.
And if you listen to the fans right now, they're not doing a good enough job, even with the number one class, of getting enough out of the state of Georgia. They're just
I think they're doing all right these days. They got some talent these days.
They are not happy with the amount of 5-stars that are getting out of the state, though. Even though they're getting plenty from other states, they're not happy. And I understand that part of it. I think that's one of those things that's going to take some few years to get used to, with all of that. So when you start looking at your career, what would you say, you know, if you could pick out a job or even just a portion of a job that was the most fun, was the most gratifying for you? What kind of, you know, that you look back on the most fondly? What would you say that is?
I like the one I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I'm having the most fun with what I'm doing now. I can honestly say that. I like being a columnist from the standpoint of, you know, you write your opinions. And that's something that you don't really start out doing in this business. You know, it's always, you know, you learn as a reporter that not to do opinion, but, you know, as a columnist, and actually when I worked covering Georgia at 24/7 is when I started writing a lot more columns.
Yeah.
I kind of saw that I enjoyed that aspect of it, but more than that, it's the idea of I do something different kind of every day, you know, or every week, to where this last weekend I drove to Indianapolis to cover the Titans and Colts game. Just drove back today. Thursday night I'll cover the Nashville Predators home opener. The U.S. men's national team, soccer team, is in Nashville. They're going to play Ghana on next Tuesday, so that'll be going on. You know, it's just a lot of things like that, to where you can you can stretch your legs a little bit and write about something different. It's like, not to say I haven't had fun at all my different jobs. I have, but when it's not just one team or just one sport, I've really enjoyed that.
It sounds like what you're saying really, though, is that you miss the message boards most of all.
I will say that there's a certain degree of, I'll use a Nick Saban phrase, positive self-gratification. When you write something and then you got 30 people immediately being like, hey, that was great, or that was terrible, or just have have somebody care about what, we don't have a message board, right? Like at the Tennessean, so I don't get that immediate response from people. So, I kind of miss that. And there were a few posters I definitely miss. I remember, Jake, those first few years, we needed moderators to kind of help because it wasn't enough of us to maintain order here. And there were a couple that were really good about doing that and helping us. And they were very important in those early days.
Our man, Lake Norman Dog, some of those guys. Yeah. It's fun seeing those guys out and about and shaking their hands. And listen, I'm not real big, it's like, I don't know if your wife's ever done this, but you get to go on the radio, or you do XM radio or something like that, and your wife's like, "Oh, they make a big deal about it," and that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I'm like, "Stop! This is not fun for me." But when you're at there was a little while back, I was at a gas station. I dropped by a gas station. Oh, not a little while back. Actually, it was Saturday. Now that I think about it, I went to a gas station and I grabbed a big bottle of water because I was, obviously, people drink water when they're thirsty. And this guy heard me. I was on the phone, and this guy heard me while I was on the phone, and I hung up and paid for my water and everything. He goes, "Hey, are you Jake Rowe?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I've never seen you before. I've heard you, on the radio here and there." And I was like, "Oh man, you recognize my voice?" That's a weird experience.
That's
a little creepy.
Getting recognized by your voice is a whole different thing.
Yeah, but it was really cool. It was really cool and then you talk about that positive self-gratification. It's like on the message boards when you get a couple of comments on a story you wrote, that always outweighs to the nth degree the 2 or 3 guys on the board that you don't mess with from a personal standpoint. The guys that just seem to have a problem with every opinion you've got, and they may even take a shot at you every now and then. That just so outweighs that. And it's so nice to kind of get that affirmation.
I'll tell you, the worst thing to me, it wasn't the people and having to clean up things. It would be in the middle of the summer when it's slow and there's not much going on, and somebody on some other site, you wouldn't even know who or what or where, would bring some rumor about a player or something with the program. And it's probably BS. And you're about to spend an entire day that you would have been able to enjoy and do something like with your family or something, chasing a rumor that probably isn't even true, because the whole message board is like, well, what about this?
Yeah.
That might've been the worst part to me.
And then you got people coming in every 45 minutes for the rest of the day asking for an update. Do we know anything on this?
Right.
And
right. You could say it's not true, but that's still not good enough. I mean, like there are people,
and you can bet your sweet ass it's going to be after 8 p.m. It's going to be on a Saturday. It's going to be on a holiday. And Georgia, I mean, I'm not only talking about like people bringing rumors from other boards. I'm talking about Sony Michel, snapping his arm and it coming out of the skin on 4th of July.
Right.
And then they had another one. Jake Fromm broke his hand on the 4th of July. His non-throwing hand on the 4th of July in a skiing act. I mean, it's always something like that. And it's a commitment on Christmas Eve. It's something like that. It's just absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, and the thing is about those rumors, like 4 out of 5 times it won't be true, but that 1 out of 5 is why you got to take it seriously.
Content bonanza.
Yeah. Especially in the middle of June.
Because the one thing they tell you in our business, more so than probably you've ever experienced anywhere else, maybe not, but usually you have guys in different roles, is surround the story, own the story, have 3 or 4 or 5 different stories, that analyze the analysis, do all sorts of other stuff, follow-up column, all that stuff. And so you end up just writing about 7 stories about one thing that came true, and it becomes kind of wild.
Yeah. So, and honestly, that's kind of the same anywhere I've ever been.
Oh, okay.
It's a little more.
I don't have any experience doing anything.
It's a little more intense. It's a lot more intensified on a message board because they have such access to, whatever you know. But Twitter kind of does that for all the beat writers now. And sure. I was covering, and has for a number of years, but I say now, like old man here, but I covering Alabama. The 3 years I covered them, I was hired for the Mobile Press Register, which at the time, AL.com consisted of the Birmingham News, Huntsville Times, and the Mobile Press Register. It's since incorporated really all three to where it's all one team. But I was the beat writer for the Mobile Press Register. The beat writer for the Birmingham News was Ian Rappaport. And so I even though the way it's set up now, we would have been on the same team, but at the time we were competing, because imagine a scenario where every story you're competing with 2 other people who are on your same site. Yeah. To where if they have it first, your story basically might as well not even exist.
Yeah.
Sure. And it was kind of like that for a number of years. So it's like, that was pretty intense too. And matter of fact, that I've worked hard any job I've ever had, but those 3 years covering Alabama, and it wasn't just the competition. It was the standpoint of those first couple of years with Saban and Alabama were messy. They weren't very good that first year. They lost to Louisiana Monroe.
I remember
they ended up having a ton of guys transfer, and this was before everybody's transferring left and right. They had a ton of guys transfer after that season, and you're basically a lot of them being run off because they're just trying to establish a new culture there. In the meantime, he's bringing in arguably the best recruiting class ever that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
First year.
100%. I think that might be the greatest recruiting class of all time in hindsight.
Julio Jones, Mark Barron, Dante Hightower. Mark Ingram. We can go on and on.
And Marcel Darius in that class too.
Yeah, he was. He was only a 3-star too. And but so all that's happening where you're bringing in these big name guys, and guys are running off and coming in, and it's like you're trying to keep up with the roster, and it was a mess covering that team. There was news every day, and he clearly got it exactly where he wanted it. So they went from being pretty bad that first year to going undefeated in 2008, losing to Florida in the SEC championship game, going undefeated again in 2009, beating Florida in the SEC championship game, then winning a national title. So in the 3 years I covered that team, they went from losing to Louisiana Monroe to beating Texas in the Rose Bowl to win the national championship. And that was those were probably the most memorable 3 years of anything I've been a part of, certainly. And then to go from that, I went from covering that to Georgia's team the very next season. I'd covered Alabama up until almost the first game in that 2010 season. My first day covering Georgia was the season opener, which Georgia won against Louisiana Lafayette.
And then it was a while before they got another one.
And then, they didn't win another game for about a month. And they're 1-4. They lost that game in Colorado on a fumble late in the game. And I'm walking back to my car through that campus in Boulder going, what in the hell have I gotten myself into? I was covering the number 1 team in the country. And now I'm about to have to cover a coaching search, and they're get rid of Rick and all this. And, ended up, Jake, to this, I'm still not sure how he kept his job during that little stretch, because it was getting real bad with Georgia that year.
Yeah. I think it was because he had made change. I think it's because he had made some changes and they gave it a chance. And I think if he would have, they started out 0-2 the next year. They started out 0-2 in 11.
Got stomped by Boise State too.
Got beat up by Boise State and threw one away against South Carolina with all the turnovers and a fake punt and all that stuff. And then then it came to the fact that they went on that kind of 10-game run there and got into the SEC championship game, saved Rick's job, had a really good season in 2012 outside of that embarrassment at South Carolina, and that bought him a couple more years. But I'll always remember that weird feeling you had 2014 Georgia Tech. I remember walking to that press box that day, noon game, and you said, I don't normally have weird feelings about game, but when I do, they usually. And you said, I have a weird feeling about this. And I was like, nah, they're going to beat Georgia Tech. And the next thing you know, Georgia fumbles twice inside the 10 and gets intercepted in overtime. And that's that. It's over. Georgia lost to Georgia Tech. And things got really squirrely then.
Same feeling I had before they hosted Missouri the year before.
Oh, really?
Exact same feeling, yeah. I don't know why I could always figure that out. I think it goes from being in school in the late 90s and watching Georgia Tech beat Georgia. Jim in Georgia for a few years.
And listen, they hadn't lost to Georgia Tech in Atlanta since you were in school. So,
that's amazing.
Gentry, I couldn't let you get out of here before asking this. I'm curious, Jake Rowe. Working with Jake Rowe.
Oh,
I want to know your best Jake Rowe story, man. I know you got to have one.
Oh man.
Gentry and I only worked together for a year, and I will say this: I didn't have a chance to really come out of my shell working with Gentry. We didn't even work together, I don't think, for a whole calendar year.
No, I mean, I knew who you were, but it was I really wasn't there long enough.
He ran a taxidermy shop prior to getting into this.
Yeah, I did. Still do.
Didn't you get your car booted at the Buttsmere?
I got towed, brother. Me and Todd Gurley both.
That's probably it.
And it was funny. Well, I also got yelled at by Mark Rick, I think, the next day.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
Remember when I had to apologize to Mark Rick for, he thought I was taking photos.
Oh, I do remember that.
Yeah.
But you weren't, right? You were.
No, I couldn't get my camera to work. I didn't have any photos that day. I got screamed at for not having photos that day.
And you know how rare it was for Mark Rick to scream at anyone, especially a media member at practice.
He cursed at me.
I've seen Jake Rowe rattled a few times. That was probably number one on my list. I mean, dude looked like he was going to pull his hair out when Mark Rick yelled at him.
I remember Roos was walking around from that atrium area that we used to have, and we were walking out of the media closet that we used to work in, the den with no windows. And I was walking around the corner, and I met him going there. He goes, "Hey, man," and I said, "He goes, I don't give a shit, man." Or something like that. Like I just said something walking past him. I was so angry. I was so mad. I was so mad at the situation because I honestly wasn't doing anything wrong. And two, I thought that even not doing anything wrong, I thought I'd screwed it up for everybody else because they were talking, because he had said something about, you guys don't have to watch practice. I don't have to have you out here. But Mark Rick said damn to me. And I tend to believe he don't say that to a whole lot of people. So, and I don't know if you saw the other day his, him coming out before the Kirby press conference.
Yeah, I did see that.
The NCAA thing, and he says, "If I had to do over again, lie and deny." So, Mark Rick, little salty about those that time way back.
It is, by the way. It's pretty cool that he can just still come around that program. Yeah. It's pretty rare for a coach who's been let go like that to still be the fixture he's been around there. He's a pretty classy dude to be doing that.
Not only that, but I mean, classy on Kirby's part too. And that photo of him and Ray Goff and Jim Donnan after the national championship game, I think they all took a photo there with Kirby, and that made its rounds, which was pretty interesting because all those coaches kind of stayed in the area. Rick still lives in the area now after going to Miami and then coming back. And then, but Kirby letting him come around, and it's almost one of those guys like, how do you not let a guy that's made of the stuff that he's made of around your program, around your, around the people in your building, whether it's your players or coaches or whoever, because he's a tremendous man. He wasn't an elite football coach. He was a really good one and better than most, but a tremendous man. And I think that was, that just kind of, I don't know how you not do that. And I think Kirby's done a good job kind of, making sure that he is welcome around there.
Yeah, I think with Mark Rick too, I've always respected. I was in school when they hired him. I got to meet him at the complex, I think his second or third day on the job after Quincy Carter went pro. And I remember thinking at the time, I went back and told my roommates, I said, Georgia's about to get better at football. I think they made a good hire.
Yeah.
And I was impressed with him. And, he did a good job, but I think what happens over the years with that profession, I think the whole thing got Sabanized. I mean, I think that's the word. I mean, Saban comes back to college. He lands in a place like Alabama that's just ready to do everything he wants to be successful.
That can match his energy completely.
Yeah, and is ready for a coach like that to embrace everything he wants to do. And I think Kirby has done a lot of the same things at Georgia. I've never believed that a coach was any better fit just because he went to that university. I've never thought that, he doesn't want to win anymore or have any greater insight into coaching just because he happened to go to that university. But I think Kirby is an exception in my mind in the fact that he was a perfect fit for Georgia because he knew exactly where to scratch right away because he had been recruiting against Georgia for so many years. He knew how he was doing it. He knew what the weaknesses were. He knew exactly what needed to happen for them to take the next level, to reach the next level. And that made him a perfect fit because he knew the program so well and he knew what they were doing right and what they weren't doing right.
Well, Gentry, you've been awesome with your time, and I've heard you've told me you did some film study on this here shenanigans that we pull on Monday nights. So probably know we've got 2 questions we ask everybody.
Do you still do that where you go back and watch every play? Like I remember I set you up pretty bad with that.
No, I do not. I did do that, and I kind of did my own spin on it. Like I did, I would do personnel groupings, and I would kind of summarize every drive. And folks like that, but it just became too time consuming. I do go back usually the night after the game, no matter how late it is. I'll go back and watch the game so that I can write the report card first thing that morning. And now my version of that is I've gotten really good at the computer, and I know how to make a GIF. I know how to screen record and make a GIF. I mean, I'm talking about next level shit here. I'm talking about like top level tech stuff. And I'll go in and cut up, anywhere between 5 and 10 GIFs from the previous game and just kind of break them down for video. But those play-by-plays you used to do were legendary.
I have just thought of a better answer to the question about a Jake Rowe moment.
Oh, yeah, please.
Oh, God.
The build-up in the 2014 season, we had spent months writing about the Clemson game.
Oh, yes.
And they're going to host Clemson, and it's this big moment. I remember that was Deshaun Watson's first game. There was so much that went into that, and there was so much build-up. And I think that day, didn't you tear your ACL?
I was there. I saw it.
I did. Here's the thing. You want to know the funny thing about it? I lied. I lied to you, and I lied to our bosses and everything about how it happened. I was tailgating outside the stadium when it happened.
I saw it.
I told you guys I was moving some boxes, and I fell down some stairs.
I don't remember the moving the boxes, but I do remember calling your house to try to get you to help with something. And I think your wife was like, no.
I was hurting. I was in some pain, dude. So, no, what had happened was we were over at the corner of Baldwin and Lumpkin. In that there's that ROTC building there with a lawn there. And some friends, years before that, we'd been tailgating there for years before games. And we had a crew that had tickets and would go into the games. And then we had a crew, we'd set up a satellite with a generator. Well, not a generator. We'd pull power from the building, actually, and watch the satellite out there. And, I was just going to go out there and tailgate. My dad wasn't there for that one. But, just had some friends from college that He
might have been.
He may have been. Yeah. I don't think he was, but he may have been. But we had some friends there, and so we couldn't pull power from the building because the door was locked. So I circled the building and climbed into one of those windows.
Okay, now it's a Jake Rowe story. Now,
yeah,
you're just waiting on the moment where he does something everybody else wouldn't do. There you go. Yeah. Climbed into.
And I climbed.
So then I broke and entered into a state facility.
I got on top of a air conditioner unit and got up under this thing. I'm built for that kind of thing. Like 5'10", 240. That's I'm a good grease man. 5'9", 240. Good grease man. So I get in, but the problem is I get in the building. I'm like, okay, I'm in the building. Where do I go? I was completely lost. And so I'm rummaging around that building for 20 minutes trying to figure out, hey, how do I get to the door to open it from the inside? And I finally find it, and I get really excited. So I start jogging down this little hallway that leads to that. I can see the people out the window of the front lawn there. And here I come to save the day. I bust through the double doors. I jump out. And the rug slips a little bit, and I hear a pop in my knee, and I'm like, "Oh God!" Oh, and I go down.
Jesus.
Yeah,
I believe you openly told me. I'm pretty sure I just tore my ACL again.
Yeah, I did. And I let it sit that way for the longest time until one day I was out playing in the front yard, and it was all wobbly, And it was probably 2 or 3 months later. No, I went the whole season with it like that. I went the whole season. It was probably January, February. I was playing with my daughter in the front yard. And I was hitting balls with a tennis racket, tennis balls for the dog to go fetch. and I just kind of wrenched on it, and then I tore my meniscus, and it flapped over into the joint, and I couldn't straighten out my leg anymore. And I covered that entire spring practice after you left, needing ACL and meniscus surgery because I couldn't do it before because I wouldn't be able to cover it.
Played hurt, man.
Played stupid is what I did. Listen, stupid's a good word for me, man. All right, so last questions here. I always kind of frame this question as, listen, you're having an out-of-body experience, but you just died. Okay, like they found you face down in a ditch somewhere, and Gentry's gone. He's left us, and your wife's a widow, and all that stuff. Who's sending you off? You know, who's eulogizing you or performing at your funeral? Brandon Adams said used a comedian. John T. Edge said, who did he say?
It was
the dude he went over to Dublin to see. We were talking about how much we love the guy, and I just can't even remember his name. But he had a singer. I mean, who would send you off?
I heard y'all ask this to other people, and I was like, God, what would I say? And I still don't know. Sherlock Holmes, find out who killed me. So I could then haunt them. Like Dwight Schrute on The Office. So if I'm dead, y'all been dead for, So I don't know. But the best comedian that I've liked the best, and it's a Georgia guy, is David Cross.
Okay.
I'm not saying he would be good at that, but if I had to say, like,
I think he probably would be.
Yeah, if I'd say who I would most probably want to do that, I guess that's probably it. But no, I don't know. I mean, because it's like you guys have such detail in that question. It's like you're dead in a ditch or whatever. It's like, well, okay, I got questions about that. I'm not jumping out of a plane or
that's the reporter in you, dude. That's the reporter in you, working on the murder beat.
No, Gentry, my question for everybody is, and you've worked in some places, man. You worked in Albany. You've been all around in a number of jobs. The worst hotel room Gentry Estes has ever stayed in is where?
There's two categories for this because I started on Marriott points, I don't know, 15 years ago or more. And so once you get on that train, you don't really get off it. And then there's most Marriotts, there's a floor. Like you're not going to really ever be that bad. But two categories on that. The first one, my second year out of school, I was covering Alabama for a paper in Alabama called the Decatur Daily. And my first week on the job was the start of the NCAA tournament. Alabama was an 8 seed. They got sent out to Seattle to play, and they beat Southern Illinois in the first round. In the second round, they beat top-seeded, unbeaten Stanford and upset them to go to the Sweet 16. So I went from Seattle directly to Phoenix, where the Sweet 16 was. Didn't even go home. Went to Target and bought a bunch of shorts because it was like 50 degrees in Seattle, and it was going to be 95, 100 in Phoenix. So I really did go buy new clothes, go all the way to Phoenix. I got probably one of the cheapest hotels you could have in Phoenix. It has forever shaped my opinion of that wonderful city because to this day, I'm not like a fan because that hotel was so bad. But I don't even remember what it was, like a Days Inn Motel 6, something like that. Air conditioner didn't work, which I don't recommend that one in Phoenix. I ended up changing like the rooms 3 times in the hotel to try to find an air conditioner. I didn't really care about anything else. I just wanted an air conditioner that worked. And I couldn't really get that done. In the Marriott category of worst hotel, I actually drove past it today. It was a courtyard in the middle of Indiana. I won't embarrass them too much, but I covered an NCAA tournament a few years ago where Tennessee was in Indianapolis, and I stayed in a courtyard that had seen better days. And I'm okay with a cold, the showers being cold and the keys not working and all that stuff. But do not take my TV away from me during the I couldn't get True TV. TNT kept going in and out. It was awful. I remember yelling at the people at the desk about it and go, "This is Indiana, damn it. If I should be able to watch this tournament anywhere." You were embarrassing your state. And so that was the worst to me. It's like I can deal with a lot of stuff, but if there's a game or something I want to see, I better be able to see it.
Well, dude, thanks so much for your time tonight, man. We appreciate it. It's a lot of fun, and best of luck with the Preds and whatever you cover. And if you get bored again, maybe you come back and work it with us at DawgsHQ or something, and it'll be a lot less stressful than it was the first time.
Are you guys going to be hanging out this weekend?
No, I mean, I don't know where Gentry's going to be.
I probably won't be at the game, although I heard you guys talking about Vanderbilt, and Georgia fans should know that's a mess. That stadium right now is a mess. Just expect that.
Yeah.
It's not going to be convenient. You're going to have to walk through some weird areas. I covered one game. I covered their game against Hawaii to start the season. And it felt like where we parked to actually being in the press box, you had to take this roundabout way to get there that involved going through the basketball arena right by the court. And I mean, think about it. Have you ever been to Vanderbilt? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't.
Jake Rowe is having a moment right now.
No, because I know where I've been there enough times to know where everything's at, and that's weird.
The basketball, not just the arena, like the actual court, and then you had to go through the baseball stadium, kind of, and then you came in and then went these planks and weird stairs, and it was a pain. I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna be nice when they get it finished, but I would have advised Vandy to maybe play at Nissan Stadium this year, or even where the MLS soccer team plays. But it's there will be a lot of red in there. But look, all the Georgia fans probably gone by the end of the third quarter anyway. So it probably won't be too much of a hassle. But it's not. Y'all be prepared for that.
And I've got a hard hat in my basement. I'll bring just in case I end up walking through a construction site.
I mean, it was raining when we went in for that Hawaii game, and the little construction steps, the really narrow ones, is you kind of got to go through. I mean, they were like wet, and you're holding on to the rail. I mean, just plan for that. Was you're carrying stuff in? It's not going to be the most convenient thing. It isn't. Price of progress. It's going to be nice what they're doing there, but I'm just warning all the Georgia fans now to know that before they get there.
Writing it down now. Hard hat and knee braces. Need to bring my knee braces.
This is Jake Rowe's third ACL.
Hey, I'll text you. And I think me and Seth and maybe Brandon Adams were thinking about getting a drink after the game because we're all staying in town the night after. So would love to hook up with you if you've got time. And appreciate you, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks.
You bet. Enjoyed it. Take care, guys.
Appreciate it.
Hey, we've kind of run long. We'll just wrap this thing up and send these people out.
We're not going to do the segment. We're not going to do
segment?
Jake on Jake.
I need a drink.
Well, I'm drinking. I've been drinking the whole time.
Yeah, it's gonna take me like 5 minutes to make a drink. I gotta squeeze some limes and stuff. Like I gotta have a celebration cocktail.
You frou person. What is wrong with you? What are you? You're like a Pomeranian. Like we gotta come on, grow up, man.
Oh man, no, let's do this segment. Let's do it. Jake, let's Jake off.
All right. I got one for you tonight. So my question, and it came to me while we were talking to Gentry. I know that you are like me and you've had sort of a weird path to all of this. So taking the sports writing thing out of this, what's your favorite job you've ever had outside of this industry?
Outside of this industry?
Outside of this industry, yeah.
Dude, they've been garbage. Most of them. Here's the thing. I liked it early on teaching. Like my first year teaching, sure. I enjoyed, because, I taught math and, I taught math and I taught as a kind of a collaborative special education teacher. And, I had some people that I worked with that I really like. I would say probably that first year teaching, it was honestly really just the first 2-3 months because it kind of sucked. The more I did it, the more it sucked. But I had awesome kids on my caseload. I had some cool parents that I got to deal with that were great. And, that's just not, for lack of a better way to say it, there's just not a lot of, there's not a lot of that in Clark County schools. It's kind of tough to get involved with parents a little bit sometimes. But had worked with a guy, the coaching, coaching at Cedar Shoals, working with Mike McDonald and Tide Lockett and Xavier Smith and those guys. That was pretty cool. Coach Terry Turner was my dude. I hadn't seen him in years, but I'd love to. Drico Thomas, who's the athletic director and head basketball coach there. I had a lot of fun doing that. It's a tight race between that and the couple of years I spent working at Athens Regional and Patient Business Service while I was in college. I worked with a bunch of ladies, like a bunch of older ladies, like
I bet they loved you.
And dude, we had a blast.
There was working with older women is fun, dude.
Dude, I gained like I think I got up to about 275 working there because they would bring me. One of those ladies was a grandmother to her core. One of the most irreverent women I've ever met in my life. She was so funny. She was from up north, but she had lived in the South for a long time. And she used to bring me food just to be like, I love to watch you eat. She bought me a pot roast. She bought me a big pot roast thing one day. She goes, "Hey, take this home and warm it up for your wife, and you guys have it. You guys can have it for dinner tonight. It'd be great. Me and my husband won't eat it." I had that thing ate by lunchtime.
Ain't no doubt. I know you did.
I was picking them carrots and potatoes out of that bad boy.
I'm surprised by this because I really thought you might say, because you've told the story so many times about going like up to Maine with your dad.
Yeah, that was just real stressful, long, hard work.
Yeah.
That was we were remodeling. We were doing Walmart Pharmacy and Vision Center remodels. My dad had gotten a contract, and we went to Maine, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, right outside of Pittsburgh, upstate New York. Maine was awesome though. But man, what would happen is we would start working, and we would have a hard time getting inspections because we weren't local.
Yeah.
And we would have a hard time getting the inspections done. And then we would get to a point where we were twiddling our thumbs in a hotel room for 3 days. We had to have it done in like 12 days.
Like trapped.
And we'd get so far behind that we would end up working 36 hours straight to try and get it going. And that was miserable. So that might be the worst job I've ever had, even though I did love spending 12 days in Maine in early August of what was it, 2003.
Rockland.
Yeah, so that definitely was, that was something else, man. The main part was fun, but what? So, all right, I wanted to ask you this. We both like to travel. Do you have any travel plans as of right now on the books, and where are you going, or anything in the works?
Yeah, no, I've got 2 things set. I've got 2 flights scheduled right now. Both of them are in November. I'm going to St. Louis the first weekend in November, and I'm going to go see Metallica.
Give me fuel.
I'm not like a huge.
Give me that which I desire.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm like the world's greatest Metallica fan or anything like that. I love a lot of Metallica stuff. It was really one of those things. My dad hit me up and said, "Hey, do you want to go to this with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah, dude! Like, let's
go." Chuck Roos.
So it was his idea. He put the whole thing together. So we're gonna go see Metallica. I figure that's a good bucket list band. That's probably one of those, that I'll be glad I checked off the list that I saw. And then the other one is I'm going out Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I'm coming back Tuesday after, and I'm flying down to Gulf Shores, and I'm gonna go see my dad. It's my dad's birthday is on Thanksgiving, and so gonna go spend about a week down there, and just kind of catch up with the family. We got a big poker tournament planned for my dad's birthday, and my dad throws a hell of a party. So I'm excited. I'm excited to go spend some time with him as well. But other than that, I mean, that's kind of some localized stuff. Nothing beyond that. I don't have anything like set. There's the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is somewhere that I've really been looking at a lot lately because it just seems like weirdly inaccessible. I think that your best bet's like kind of to fly to Detroit and ferry over. There's not a lot of like airports in that area, so but it looks really beautiful. And other than that, man, I don't know. I'm still working on my ability to go see Aurora Borealis at some point. So I don't know where I'm going to catch that, but that's
funny you bring that up because last week I was looking at a map. I don't know why I was doing it, but I was looking at a map of like Michigan, and I saw that Upper Peninsula area.
Yeah.
And I said, man, Wisconsin is so soft. And my wife heard me. And she goes, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "She goes, are you talking about college football? What, you don't watch Wisconsin?" And I was like, because I was like, "Nah, don't worry about it." And she was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I'm looking at this map of Michigan, right? And that should belong to Wisconsin. How did they let this happen?"
Yeah.
So it was she was like, "You are so weird."
Everybody I've talked to says it's like a completely different. It's like it's like an insular culture there. It's like it's almost its own state. And it's like it's a weird mix of like Canada and America, and
Yeah.
they're isolated up there. So I just want to check it out just because I think it would be a cool place to see. I think it would be a neat the scenery looks beautiful, man. I mean, you go.
I bet it is. I bet it's great.
Yeah, you go look at the photos, man. It's stunning, and there's just not a lot up there. So
there's a lot of beautiful stuff up there near that northern border in the U.S., over the border in Canada. I want to go to Banff at some point. Obviously I want to go, Wyoming, Montana. Yeah, Montana. Like I really wanted to go to Jackson Hole this year for Thanksgiving because we always travel to Charleston as a family. And I'm like, guys, there's no more useless place in November than Charleston. Okay, it's like it's cold. I don't like walking on the beach with 40-mile-an-hour winds and 40-degree weather. Okay, let's just not do that. There's bad influences here. I always end up drinking a whole bottle of whiskey on Thanksgiving and not even remembering anything. Not really. I'm joking. I did that one time. So I wanted to do that this year, and they're like, "No, it's too cold. This is too cold." You know where we're going? We're going to Zion National Park in Utah.
Oh, rock and roll, man.
Yeah, it's going to be good and warm there, I bet.
No, but it will be cool. It'll be a cool trip.
Yeah. Oh, no question. But I wanted to go to Jackson Hole, and we should have went to
Jackson Hole was going to be cold, man.
I know. That's what I don't mind being cold. I just don't want to be expected to go walk out on the beach.
Sure. You're not going to have to worry about that in Utah either.
Yeah. So no beaches in Utah, but I wanted to go to Jackson Hole. That's on my bucket list. All right, folks, we will be back next Monday with a guest to be named. If we do like we've done the last couple of weeks, we'll have something lined up ahead of time. If not, we'll be scrambling on Sunday night to figure it out. You may end up with just us two. Who knows? I may not be alive. If the Braves advance to the NLCS, I don't know what's going to happen to me.
If you found Jake Rowe dead in a ravine.
Yeah. I can't even remember who I said to eulogize me, but get somebody good. We'll see y'all later. Y'all take care. This has been Bark After Dark. Ruff, ruff.